Welcome to the Narrative Mindset Podcast. If this is your first time tuning in, I would really appreciate it if you went back and viewed previous episodes. Okay, here we are again. I want to start off with, I don't know, I hate to say this, another upgrade to the podcast. But, and like I said before, if you've been listening to earlier episodes, I'm all about growth. Growth is the first and foremost thing that's the most important to me is growth. However little it may be, so don't get me wrong. I just want to be better tomorrow than I was today. So, the new upgrade to the podcast was I went and got it's a desk Shure stand. I went and got that from the Guitar Center. And it's through Shure, it's pretty heavy. The reason I went and got it, because yesterday I had kind of ran into another issue with the recordings and everything. Because, number one, when I got my settings off of, I think it's my Rodecaster settings, was online. So I got the settings and I put them in and everything, and they worked pretty good. But when I listened to the recording again, I could hear the noise gate cutting in and out, and it really sounded horrible. So I said, you know what? I'm just gonna go back to the presets. Yeah, I think I'm using the broadcaster preset right now. Also, I want to mention that I figured out how to use the Bluetooth on the Rodecaster also. So now I can I can have guests on and do like phone calls and actually make the episode an episode with, a little banner, conversation back and forth and things of that nature. So I do want to mention that for all of you people are out there thinking about a podcast or whatever, you're trying to come up with something, I want you to remember just some things that I can think of to save you money. Because when you get the stuff off eBay and Amazon, honestly, you're wasting money. You really are. So what you want to do is you want to definitely want a good mixer. That's one thing. My suggestion would be Rodecaster Pro 2 or, Rodecaster or whatever, something along that line. I would choose the Rodecaster Pro 2 that has everything that you would think that you would need in the future. I would do the Shure desktop microphone holder. I would do the Shure SM7B microphone. I would do XLR, a pretty decent XLR. I don't think you have to spend a ton of money, but I mean, I think mine was like $15, I think. So I would do that. And I would also invest in the portable sound booth on Amazon. But if you don't have a quiet room, uh, I would suggest going to Harbor Freight or whatever. Just going somewhere where you can find some cheaper moving blankets. And then what I did was I hung them up with zip ties around the the enclosure, even in the front. I hung them, and then unfortunately I have to lift them up, come in, and then zip the door down behind me. But what I do is I let them down, and they cover the door, so it gives you more of a sound isolator, not a soundproof booth, but a sound isolator. So it definitely helps uh, when you're trying to do your podcast and you want to give a professional sound to your listeners and show that that you're striving for better. At least I think, and you're not just throwing anything out there. You can put anything out there, and because doing anything is better than doing nothing, getting started, and then you get your mind working, and you start thinking of different different ideas or whatever, and you figure out a niche, and then you just try to figure out whatever you can based around that niche, whatever in whatever form that you want to bring it. Doesn't have to be like anybody else's, because you definitely want to find your own lane in that particular niche. So, I'm doing the uh, narrative mindset podcast based on mental illness and surreal storytelling around mental illness. I'm not a professional by no means. So, but, if that helps anybody as far as where they want to go with their podcast, then so be it. So, uh, let's get into it. October 26th, 2023. Dear Diary, it's late. Maria's asleep. Her soft, even breaths filling the quiet of our old craftsman and the pleasant ridge. The house smells faintly of the apple pie she baked earlier. Comforting. Makes me sick to think of other smells, other times, and then it hits me. Like it often does when the world quiets down and my mind starts to wander. Cast Tech. It's always Cast Tech, isn't it? The grand old lady on the hill, the bastion of learning, and, well, a crucible for so many of us. For me, certainly. And for him, Tommy Tutone. God, it's a name that still makes a little cringe flicker through me, even after all these years. Not because of him, no, but because of me, or more accurately, the me I was back then. Young, dumb, full of nervous energy and the desperate need to fit in. To be seen as something cool, something funny, something more than just another kid navigating the labyrinth halls of one of Detroit's most formidable high schools, Cass Tech. It wasn't just a good school, it was an institution, a melting pot, a proving ground. And I, like so many others, was trying to find my footing, often by stepping on someone else's. Maria, bless her wise old soul, she always tells me I dwell too much on the past. You can't change it. Darling, she'll say, but you can learn from it. And you did learn. And she's right. Of course. I wouldn't exist without Maria Singh. Not really. She's the anchor. The compass that steered my ship away from the reefs of youthful arrogance and into the deeper, more thoughtful waters of adulthood. She taught me empathy. The kind that doesn't just skim the surface, but delves into the murky depths of the past actions and future intentions. Without her, I'd probably still be stuck in some echo chamber of my own making, convinced I was always right. Obvious to the harm I might have caused, even unintentionally. Unintentionally. That's the word that keeps coming back to me when I think of Tommy. Was it unintentional? Or was it just thoughtless? Reckless? A byproduct of that peculiar, insidious social hierarchy that forms in every high school, where quick wit is currency and vulnerability is a weakness to be exploited, or at least poked at. Tommy Tutone, he was in my shop class first, I think, or maybe it was chemistry. Always with his head in a book, thick glasses, perpetually sliding down his nose. Quiet, always quiet. That made him a target, didn't it? Not for violence, nothing like that. Cass Tech wasn't that kind of place, generally. But for the incessant, low-level hum of teasing, the easy jokes, the gentle prods, the kind of thing that, when you're 15, feels like harmless fun. A way to unify the group, to show that you're part of the crowd, however loosely defined that crowd might have been. Hey, Tutone, still reading Shakespeare for fun? I call out. Maybe in the bustling hallway between classes. The sound of hundreds of conversations, locker doors changing, footsteps on the worn terrazzo floors, echoing through the grand of the building. The building itself, a marvel of Art Deco, with its intricate tile work and soaring ceilings, always felt like it held 1,000 stories within its walls. And Tommy was one of those stories. Perhaps even more significant than I realized at the time. He'd almost never respond. Just a flicker in his eyes. A slight stiffening of his shoulders. Then he'd turn the page of whatever esoteric tom he was engrossed in. Sometimes he'd offer a small, almost imperceptible nod, No anger, no tears, just absorption. Like our words were dust motes floating in the air, momentarily obscuring his view, but easily brushed aside. And that, in a twisted way, made it easier to keep doing it. No pushing back meant no guilt, right? No, not really. It just meant he was stronger than we were. Stronger than I was. I remember one particular incident. It was in the cafeteria. A cacophony of clattering trays and boisterous laughter. We were huddled at one of the long, scarred tables. A small group of us, my usual cronies. Someone, maybe it was Mark or Kevin, I can't quite recall, the precious instigator, had swiped Tommy's sandwich. A simple, stupid act. He just sat there, looking at his empty tray. Then slowly, deliberately, he reached in his bag and pulled out another sandwich, wrapped in wax paper. No fuss, no explosion, just a quiet, resolute replacement. And that's when I felt it. A tiny prick of something like shame. Even then, he'd give us the reaction we wanted. He didn't rise to the bait. He just adapted and continued. It wasn't just me, of course. It was a pack mentality, a collective immaturity. We were all finding our way, bumping into each other, trying to establish some semblance of identity amongst the brilliant, the ambitious, the artistic, the technical minds that Cass Tech gathered under its roof. But that doesn't excuse it. It just explains some of the pathetic psychology behind it. Maria would say, understanding why doesn't make it right, but it helps you forgive yourself so you can truly apologize, even if it's only in your heart. And what was Tommy doing all those years? While we were obsessed with proms and football games and sneaking out to Belle Isle, he was probably devouring books, quietly assembling the intricate pieces of his inner world. He wasn't chasing fleeting trends. He was building something lasting, something foundational. He was already a man. In a way, we weren't. Years passed. High school ended. The whir of Cass Tech halls faded into memory, replaced by the hum of college dorms. Then the drone of early career jobs. Life happened. I got swept up in my own whirlwind, finding my passion in urban planning, working for the city, meeting Maria at a community cleanup event in Lafayette Park, marrying her, building a life here in Detroit, watching it slowly, painstakingly come back to life, brick by brick, mural by mural. And then, a few years ago, maybe 5 now, I ran into him. Not in person, not initially. Maria and I were at the Detroit Public Library, the main branch by the DIA. We were doing some research for a neighborhood revitalization project. It was poring over some old directories, trying to trace the history of a particular block in Corktown. And Maria, ever the curious one, was wandering through stacks, a book in hand, her finger tracing the spine of another. "Look at this, darling," she said, her voice a low murmur, not wanting to disturb the hushed reverence of the library. She held up a flyer, tastefully designed, simple. It was for a series of lectures, Detroit's Forgotten Voices, unearthing the stories of the industrial past. And then I read the name of the speaker, Dr. Thomas Tutone. My breath hitched. Dr. Thomas Tutone, a historian, an archivist, specializing in industrial heritage. In the voices of the working class of Detroit, the flyer mentioned his work with the Burton Historical Collection, his dedication to preserving the stories, the mute, the forgotten narratives of the city. He wasn't just a historian. He was a keeper of stories, our stories, Detroit stories, my stories. In a way, it was more than just a name. It was a jolt, a flash of revelation. But look at his picture on the flyer. Older, of course, a little less hair, a few more lines around his eyes, but undeniably him. Still with the thoughtful gaze, the intensity in his eyes. Though now, it seemed less like shyness and more like profound focus. A quiet strength illuminated. I remember the boy who kept his head buried in books, impervious to our silly taunts. I remember the boy who replaced his stolen sandwich without a word. He wasn't escaping reality. He was diving deeper into it, into its past, into its fabric. He wasn't just reading history. He was preparing to write it, to preserve it, to give voice to those who had none. The respect surged through me, a powerful, almost overwhelming wave. Respect for the path he'd chosen, for the dedication, for the profound, lasting impact he was undoubtedly having. Well, some of us were chasing fleeting success. Tommy was digging for roots, building foundations, ensuring that the legacy of our city, the human stories that built it, wouldn't be lost. Maria saw the look on my face. Always does. "What is it?" she asked softly, her hand finding mine. I showed her the flyer. My finger trembled slightly as I pointed to his name. "Tommy Tutone," I whispered, the name feeling different on my tongue now, laced with a mix of regret and awe. She smiled, a gentle, understanding smile. "He sounds like a remarkable man." "He is," I said. "He always was. I didn't see it then." And that's the hardest part, isn't it? The blindness of youth, the self absorption, the way we reduce people to characters, to the roles we assign them in our own small ego driven dramas. Tommy was never just Tutone, the quiet kid who reads. He was a budding scholar, a future guardian of forgotten histories, a man of profound intellect and quiet resilience. He was a pillar. Even then, just a smaller, unpolished version. I never reached out to him. I've thought about it many times, drafted emails in my head, practiced apologies. But what do you say? Hey, remember me? The obnoxious kid who used to make fun of you in high school. Just wanted to say, I'm sorry. And also, I think you're incredible. It feels insufficient, self-serving almost. Like I'm trying to ease my own conscience more than quietly connect. But I want him to know. I want him to know that there was never any real malice in it. That it was clumsy, misguided, but not born of hatred. That I was a kid trying to find my footing. And sometimes, regrettably, that meant stumbling over others. And more importantly, I want him to know that I respect him profoundly. I respect the integrity he showed then and the integrity he embodies now in his work. He preserves the narratives of those who built this city, who often toiled in obscurity. He gives them voice, dignity. He elevates their experiences. That's a noble profession, an inspirational one. He stood for something then, even if none of us recognized it. He stood for quiet conviction, for intellectual curiosity, for an inner world so rich it didn't need external validation. And he still stands for those things. He shows us that the real strength isn't in the loudest voice, but in the most persistent, in the most dedicated, in the most truthful. So here I am, in the quiet of my home, years removed from the bustling hallways of Cass Tech, from the cacophony of youth. Maria sleeps soundly beside me. Her presence, a constant reminder of the better man I strive to be. And I write this private confession to a diary, a silent apology, a heartfelt tribute to a man I once teased, but now deeply admire. If I could ever tell him, face to face, what would I say? I suppose I'd say, thank you, Tommy. Thank you for showing me, even indirectly, what real strength looks like. Thank you for your quiet dedication. Thank you for preserving our stories. And I hope, somewhere deep down, he'd understand that behind the clumsy words of a teenage boy, there was always a spark of something that eventually grew into respect. In that, I mean it truly. I guess this is my way of making peace with it. Maria would approve. She always says, the past is a story you tell yourself. Make sure it's one you can live with. And this story of Tommy Tutone, from a quiet, studious kid to a respected historian, is certainly one I can live with. It makes me believe in the quiet power of individuals and the beautiful, often delayed revelation of character. Good night, diary. Good night, Tommy. My name, left unspoken, but etched in these pages. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Narrative Mindset Podcast.